Janet Yellen at the Economic Forum on Tuesday, indicating the new normal of supply and demand, and the supply side economics. They say Janet Yellen made a case, a very weak case, but she tried to make a case that the new normal of the economy is supply side economics, and that supply has to come from the government. It's about the government printing more money, getting deeper in debt. It's the only way it is that we can have a thriving economy. So we have to embrace this new supply side economic theory, according to Janet Yellen. There is no new supply side economic theory. Government being involved is never a good thing. It's never going to work. It never has worked. Now, these are people, Janet Yellen and others, that have argued against supply side economics for many, many years. There is one point that those that oppose supply side economic theory make that I would have to agree with. And it is one thing that when I look at, it is concerning. Just because you increase supply does not necessarily mean that you increase demand. So if you don't get the demand, then all the supply in the world is going to be somewhat irrelevant. It was like Ben Bernanke, quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, 4, constantly trying to create demand. It never worked because the government can't make it work. Everybody was too smart to think that that was going to work, and they didn't pay attention. His hope was that an overabundant supply of money at a very low interest rate would drive people, businesses, to increase supply. I said back then on a number of occasions, on countless interviews, that it's never going to work, because I said it's laughable to think that you're going to create demand and create supply when nobody wants to borrow the money. They don't care how cheap it is. Business, small business in particular, are smart enough with enough common sense to say, I'm not going to borrow money even at 0% interest if I got to pay it back and I can't create demand. And nobody is going to buy anything. We have consumers that are hunkered down. It's not going to matter how much I borrow and how much I try to grow my business from the money that I'm borrowing cheap. It isn't going to last, because inevitably I'm not going to be able to pay any of the loan back because there's no demand for borrowing. Nobody wants to borrow because there's no demand for buying stuff. That's what happened. We had no growth. We had a president that is the first president in the history of the nation that has ever presided over 8 straight years of less than 2% GDP growth. As a matter of fact, 3 straight years would be a record. So we had no growth. Now they're claiming we have GDP growth. But when you look at the numbers that came out today, it's pretty hard to figure out where the growth is. As a matter of fact, when you look at the numbers, you quickly come to the realization that, in fact, there's no growth at all. Yeah, but the Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the Department of Commerce says 6%. Really? Well, they can say whatever they want. It's like China. But it isn't happening. you can't have a 6% GDP growth without correlating numbers. In other words, there has to be other numbers like productivity, like consumer spending, other things that have to contribute to that in order for that to be 6%. And none of those things are contributing. So therefore, there has to be a mistake. No, there's no mistake. There has to be a lie. It's just a lie. It's just smoke and mirrors. That's all it is. And everybody's all excited about it on Wall Street, thought it was a great thing when the number came out, and I laughed about it the day before yesterday. There's no correlation. And we see more numbers today, and I suspect we'll see more numbers on next week, which will be a better week, to see the lack of correlating numbers. We should have ISM service sector index ought to be up considerably. Manufacturing index ought to be up considerably. Job openings ought to be down considerably. Hires ought to be up considerably. Quits ought to be down considerably. Consumer spending has to be up considerably. Without those things, all we have is an attempt to create a little smoke and mirrors to deceive everybody. But nobody but you and I are going to buy in to that truth.
Hey, remember to click the subscribe button right here on the screen. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you'll be notified when new content is added. And more importantly than anything, you don't want to miss all 3 live hours of Financial Issues every day from 9 to noon. And you can watch it on FISM.tv. That's FISM.tv.